What's up, everyone? Let's cut to the chase. Time to get right into it. 8. Total myths about the Earth that people used to swear by. Number 8. The Earth is an animal. Have you ever thought that maybe every earthquake is just a giant ox sneezing? Sounds like a nursery rhyme, right? But for many ancient civilizations, that was basically mythological physics. In ancient India, they believed the Earth rested on the backs of 4 giant elephants, and those elephants stood on a turtle as big as a mountain, which was swimming through an endless ocean. That's a model of the universe you'd need a whiteboard to fully grasp. But for them, it was absolute truth. No telescopes, no NASA, just some planet-sized magical creatures and everything. That worldview was actually pretty logical in its own way. Earthquake? Obviously the elephant shifted its weight or the turtle wiggled. Tsunami? Must have been the ox sneezing. Thunder and lightning? The turtle's just having a bad day. Forget tectonic plates or seismic energy. It was just a giant beast feeling grumpy. The funny part is when people asked, "What's the turtle standing on?" They didn't even blink. They just said, "It's on another turtle." What about that one? Oh, it's turtles all the way down. And just like that, the infinite turtle legend was born. It was a logic chain with no end, and everyone just nodded along like it made perfect sense. Because if you stack enough turtles, eventually no one can argue with you. This whole system actually says a lot about how we view the world. We hate not having an answer. If we can't explain it, we'll just make something up. And if it sounds crazy, whatever, at least it's an answer. Today we talk about holograms, simulations, and aliens and think we're so advanced. But honestly, we're just upgraded ancients. We just swapped turtles for AI. Even Elon Musk getting us to Mars just makes him the first guy not to blame an ox for an earthquake. Number 7. The Earth is a giant, flat disk. If someone told you the world was flat today, you'd probably laugh. But don't judge. If you were born 3,000 years ago, you'd be the one laughing at anyone who said it was round. The Babylonians, Egyptians, and Greeks were certain we were just a flat disk floating in a cosmic ocean. No complex science needed. It looks flat, so it's got to be flat, right? You could travel for days and never hit a slope. The sun rose and set, and nobody ever fell off the edge. Seemed pretty obvious. Flat Earth. End of story. The Egyptians thought the sky was a goddess arching over the earth, and the ground was a god separated by the wind. The Sumerians believed in a bronze dome holding up the heavens. Kind of poetic, but a bit claustrophobic. Some cultures even thought there was a massive ice wall at the edge to keep the water from spilling out. Which meant the Earth was basically, to them, it was basically a giant pizza with the North Pole as the center and a cold, icy crust around the edge. Then along came Eratosthenes, the ultimate ancient nerd. He used nothing but a stick, a well, and the sun's shadow. And he calculated the Earth's circumference so accurately that modern GPS would be impressed. With just math and sunlight, he blew the flat Earth theory right out of the water. But the story doesn't end there. Even 2,000 years later, with satellite photos and live streams, people still insist the Earth is flat and NASA's lying. It just goes to show you don't need logic to believe something. You just need Wi-Fi. Who knows? In a few thousand years, our descendants might laugh at our beliefs just the same. Number 6. The Earth is the center of the universe. This is really a love story between humans and our own egos. Before Copernicus shattered our illusions, we were convinced we were the center of everything. Everything, the sun, moon, stars, was just circling us. A universe where we're the main character and everything else is just background extra. The Greeks called this the geocentric model. Aristotle gave it a nice philosophical polish. He said the Earth was stationary and everything revolved around us in perfect circles. Ptolemy later added more circles just to make the weird planetary movements fit the model. Basically, the universe was like a giant clock where we were the center point. It was a super comforting thought. Who doesn't want to believe the whole universe was built just for us? But then Copernicus dropped a bombshell. Sorry, but the sun is actually the center. Galileo followed up with a telescope, showing us a scarred moon and Jupiter's own moons. It meant we weren't really that special. Society's reaction? They basically wanted to throw them off the Earth just to prove we were the center. It was the ultimate reality check. In the history of ideas, we aren't the center of anything. We're just a speck of dust orbiting an average star, in a random galaxy among hundreds of billions of others. And even after centuries of science, our ego hasn't really changed. When you see a rainbow, you think the universe is sending you a sign. When your phone dies during an argument, you think the universe is punishing you. Nope, you're not being punished. You're just a tiny speck on a tiny planet, orbiting a tiny star, acting like you're the main character. Bottom line, the geocentric view never really died. It just moved from textbooks straight into our own brains. Number 5. The Earth hanging in space. Ever look up and wonder why the Earth doesn't just fall? Today, we'd just say gravity. Newton cleared that up, but back then, that question kept ancient scholars up all night, and their answers sounded like something straight out of a myth. Early Greeks actually believed the Earth floated on water. Yep, they thought we were just a giant leaf drifting through the cosmic ocean. Earthquakes? Simple, the water was just rippling. It was clean, simple, and didn't need a single equation. Then Anaximenes came along and said the Earth was held up by air. He thought air was like a soul, hugging the Earth and keeping it suspended. It's a sweet idea, like the wind acting as a mother holding the world. Other philosophers argued the Earth didn't need anything to hold it up. They thought it just stayed put, perfectly balanced. Basically, we were a holy rock, sitting still in the void because there was no reason to fall. It sounds crazy, but they were doing what we always do, making up answers to feel better. Imagine being an ancient human with no satellites, no photos, and no Google. You're surrounded by this massive, terrifying expanse, and you have no idea why. When the fear gets too real, people start blaming the gods. The Earth doesn't fall because a god holds it. If you asked, well, how? You'd be headed straight to the stake. Later, in late Greece, philosophy got serious, and someone dared to ask, if it falls, where does it go? That dumb question actually paved the way for modern physics. Ironically, science really started when people weren't afraid to ask stupid questions. Number 4. The Earth breathes. Yeah, some medieval scholars believed the Earth had a pulse, and they weren't being poetic. They actually thought the planet was a giant beast inhaling and exhaling. This idea popped up in a bunch of civilizations, especially in the era before we understood the atmosphere. Seeing things like fog, wind, volcanic gas, or cave drafts, they just thought, the Earth is breathing. Some monks even explained storms as the Earth choking. Yep, you heard that right. When the wind picked up, they claimed the Earth just took too deep a breath and coughed. If TikTok existed back then, the Earth breathing challenge would have been viral. It sounds hilarious, but it really shows how they viewed the universe. They didn't separate humans from nature. To them, the Earth was alive just like us, just on a cosmic scale. Rivers were blood, forests were lungs, rocks were skin, and volcanoes were basically zits. Every natural event was humanized because it was the only way they could grasp it. They didn't have terms like barometric pressure or carbon cycles, just the Earth is breathing. Modern science eventually crushed that theory. But funny enough, today we're back to similar ideas, treating the ecosystem like a living Mother Gaia. In other words, we're just recycling old ideas with fancier labels. The Earth doesn't actually breathe, but we really love imagining that it does. Maybe it's just because we want to believe we aren't alone in this vast, massive universe. Number 3. The Earth is glowing. 1. One of the most beautiful theories that turned out to be completely wrong was the model from Aristotle and Ptolemy. They imagined the planets were glowing. They thought massive crystal spheres were stacked, rotating around the Earth. It sounds like total fantasy, but this was actually the official model for astronomy in Europe. For over 1,000 years, they saw the universe like a giant onion, with Earth in the core and crystal layers wrapped around it. Housing the Moon and the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, each layer rotated in perfect, steady harmony. The outer layer was the fixed realm, the home of the stars and the divine. Looking up at the night sky, they imagined a massive crystal machine perfectly tuned by God. It was a poetic vision, but completely wrong. Planets don't move in perfect circles, they aren't attached to spheres, and nobody ever heard a cosmic clicking sound. Yet, back then, people loved this theory so much it became the absolute gold standard. Questioning it was basically considered an insult to God. Imagine if social media existed. Galileo would have had to mute his notifications instantly. The irony is, the model was praised as brilliant just because it was too pretty to ditch. Sometimes beauty blinds us way more than ignorance does. We love systems that give the world order, meaning, and heavenly music, even if the truth is actually chaotic and doesn't care about us at all. Bottom line, the universe isn't a crystal symphony, it's a messy box, and we're all just trying to find a melody in the noise. Number 2, the Earth is a stage. If you've ever looked up at the stars and thought, that's a giant roof, you're on the same page as our ancestors from 4,000 years ago. Ancient Sumerians, Egyptians, and even the Hebrews believed the sky was a solid dome over a flat earth. The sun, moon, and stars were basically lanterns hung on that ceiling. And rain? That was just the sky windows opening up to let the water pour down. That wasn't just a myth, it was their actual physics. They honestly thought the dome was made of divine crystal or blue metal, some kind of material, transparent but strong enough to hold back the ocean above. In Genesis, the firmament literally meant something hammered out to be hard. To them, the universe was like a massive greenhouse built by God for us to live in. It was safe, tidy, complete with sun, rain, and rainbows. In other words, Earth was basically a human terrarium. And you know what the crazy part is? That belief wasn't actually stupid. It made perfect sense back then. You see a blue dome, falling rain, fixed stars, and a horizon that looks like an edge. So it was obvious we were inside a dome. They weren't wrong, they were just limited by what they could see. If you've never left the ground or seen a photo of Earth, believing the sky is a lid is totally reasonable. Even in the Middle Ages, maps showed people reaching up to touch the dome with their own hands. But eventually, science peeled that dome back layer by layer. We realize the sky isn't a ceiling, it's just infinite space. And in that void, there's nobody protecting us. It's a moment that's both awe-inspiring and terrifying. In human history, realizing we're just floating exposed in a cold universe. Maybe that's why our ancestors invented the dome, to feel less alone. Number 1, the Earth is stationary. If you've ever laid on the grass, looked up, and felt the world spinning, you're thinking exactly like our ancestors did thousands of years ago. Surely the Earth isn't moving. To them, the idea that the Earth was spinning sounded totally ridiculous. I mean, if it were spinning, why doesn't your hair blow back, trees tip over, or people get flung into space? So the logical conclusion was that everything moves except the Earth. What I don't see isn't happening kind of logic. The ancient Greeks, especially Aristotle, insisted the Earth sat still at the center, with the moon, sun, and stars all fixed to crystal spheres, spinning around like a giant celestial clock. It sounds so tidy and makes us feel special, like the universe is moving just to keep us comfortable. The crazy part is that model actually worked pretty well for over a millennium. People successfully tracked stars, planetary positions, and even predicted eclipses. They did it all with a model that was totally wrong, but logically consistent. It's like using a lunar calendar on Mars. It's wrong, but it's still a system you can follow. When someone finally dared to suggest Earth moves, people reacted like you'd react if I told you Facebook is a living organism. No way. If the Earth were spinning, wouldn't I feel it? Yeah, the ancients believed if you can't see it, it isn't real. It was a type of sensory science. Let's call it the spilled coffee theorem. If the coffee doesn't spill, the Earth isn't spinning. It wasn't until Galileo and Copernicus spoke up that the truth finally came out. Earth isn't stationary. It's orbiting the sun while spinning constantly. It's spinning so fast that you're moving 460 meters every second without even realizing it. That means you're moving faster than Usain Bolt right now, just by sitting there reading this. The biggest irony is that humans still prefer their feelings over the actual facts. Back then, they felt like the Earth was still, so they assumed it didn't rotate. Today, we feel important, so we think the universe must have a specific reason for our existence. The stationary Earth was just a classic metaphor for our ego, wanting to be the calm center of a chaotic universe. If you're feeling a bit dizzy from all these wild versions of Earth, congrats. You've just traveled through thousands of years of human imagination. So, don't be too quick to laugh at our ancestors. Who knows? A few thousand years from now, our descendants might be laughing at us just the same. That's all for today. Smash that like button, guys. Catch you later. See you in the next one.